Welcome to the Unhinged.
Unhinged.
The Unhinged Poddy.
Welcome to the Unhinged Poddy. This is your host Rasi, and this week we are spilling the tea on sustainability, dissecting its gendered burdens, corporate greenwashing, and digging into why the ultra-rich need to take responsibility for trashing the planet. And with me today is John, my neighbor and sustainability consultant, author, and accidental influencer, to share his insights and knowledge. Hi, John.
Howdy again, neighbor.
If you haven't already, please go check out the last 4 episodes on this topic. We last covered how our journey for a greener future is incremental. But what about misinformation? Let's unmask the sinister side of corporate greenwashing. Wouldn't there be an even massive progress if we did target the right people at the very top?
Absolutely, and that's what we need to be doing, yes.
And which also reminds me, there's constant discussions and discourse coming up on how the scientists who were working directly in environmental crisis fields have abandoned the field and just gone off because they don't see hope anymore. When such narratives come up, I don't know what to feel anymore, because I go into deep depression and fear, as all of us do, and then you just resign because can you do anything? No. That borderline pushes me towards selfishness. I have no control on this anyway, and if my tiny contribution is not gonna do what it should, ideally, then what's even the point? So it's a very fine line.
It is a very fine line, and there are people leaving the field because they, I don't know, I sort of think in the back of my mind, were you ever sort of fit for the field anyways? If you're going to quit because you don't think you're doing anything, like that was never sort of the point. Like, So that's one particular thing. There are absolutely people leaving the field. There are terrible things happening. But I think a message I always want to really implore people to remember is that, especially since we just talked about that incremental needle moving in the right direction, we're moving in the right direction. Things are getting better, even though it absolutely does not seem like it. It seems like everything has gone to shit. We are getting better. Demonstrably getting better than we were 30, 40, 50 years ago. Really hard to see it. I get it, especially with all the messages coming from media. You have a lot of greenwashing coming in the form of doomism on social media, where, you know, these big petrochemical companies and other sort of unsustainable companies will feed in false data that will end up on Twitter or in TikTok talking points or in governmental policy, where they'll say things like, oh, not all scientists agree that climate change has happened. Of course scientists all agree, but all you need is that little nugget of fake information, and all of a sudden nobody wants to do anything anymore. It derails the conversation. So to put the conversation back on its tracks, we are absolutely going in the right direction. We just need to be pushing a little bit harder.
So then
otherwise I wouldn't get out of bed in the morning.
Oh, I know.
I would find another profession.
Oh, yeah. If a person in the reliable field knowledge is telling me this, I have some hope. So that definitely helps. And that matters. Genuinely, that matters. If this is your job, and if you have observed patterns, and if you have connected the dots, then your encouragement, of course, carries more weight. Even if we knew some of the things you said, confirmation is nice. It helps. So thank you very much for that. Probably wouldn't push me far off the edge to go towards selfishness. I don't think we need more selfish people. Now, do you think the primary targets of greenwashing happen to be average families and women more because they're seen easier to put into guilt? Okay, let me phrase it this way. When have you seen a corporation, if at all, actively go ahead and decide to market their stuff to specifically target young mothers or something like that, because they're vulnerable, right? Like, you're hitting them at all the angles, them being women, them being mothers, so careful and so protective of their young ones. So do you think it's a conscious practice from corporations to target them because, oh, save the planet for your future children or your current children or whatever?
It's funny you say that quote. That quote is a particular bugbear of mine. We'll get back to that. So when it comes to greenwashing tends to happen in sectors that are not regulated as much as others. So For something like baby care or child care, that anything kind of healthcare related or pharmaceutical, anything in that sort of space tends to be a highly regulated industry in most economies. So it's really hard for those companies to get away with greenwashing because they know the repercussions of doing it are so high. So I hope that helps people rest a little bit easy.
Thank God.
Does that mean there is not unethical behavior in the pharmaceutical and childcare space? No, of course not. Of course there is. They're just not pretending that they're doing something good for the planet. So greenwashing doesn't really happen as much in that. It happens plenty in other industries and in other sectors, and there are companies that do invest lots of money into market research around how they can greenwash, how they can build it into their marketing mix. And as we spoke about earlier, absolutely that's going to impact the people that are going to the stores and buying the products, which in most respects is going to be the female of the family, the mother. So going to the grocery store is where you see a lot of greenwashing happening with products that are available there. So obviously that's going to trail on, that's going to be women that are impacted from that. Whether or not a company is creating a message specifically tailored toward a female demographic, I wouldn't say they are, but the knock-on effect because of the person purchasing it is going to be impacting female. It's indirect. It's going to be impacting females most of all. The way companies tend to greenwash, it really comes in two big ways. When you go to the grocery store, for example, the first is in just loading you up with all this BS marketing talk. It could be statistics. It could be too much information, too many words, too many numbers that just don't add up. And I would say trust your gut. Like if it doesn't make sense, then they're probably trying to lie to you a little bit. And the second way is through what's called semiotics, which is just a fancy word that talks about how colors and symbols denote meaning. So the easiest example of this is a box that's green. And that's supposed to mean that you're environmentally friendly.
Subconscious associations.
Yes.
That's so true.
Or the car advert where a car is driving through a pristine field. That's supposed to denote a meaning to you.
Some purity aspects to it.
Whether or not they explicitly state it is not implied. The issue. It's implied. And greenwashing is expressly expressed, and it's also implied expression. Both of which become greenwashing.
So then on that note, what would be the most insidious way that you think that the companies greenwash? What would be a topmost example in your experience and in your knowledge?
It's the example we talked about earlier of these companies that will fund front groups, including lobbying groups, media groups exist that are entirely created to spread misinformation. There's one out of Europe, and I don't recall the name offhand. It's something on the order of the European Center for Climate Integrity, something like that. All they do is spread climate misinformation. That's their entire purpose. So, and these are all funded by very cashed up individuals and companies. So that's the most nefarious stuff, and the stuff that really, even when I was researching, I was like, oh my God, I didn't even know they were doing this stuff. But yeah, of course they're doing this stuff. So that's really where it gets really, really insidious.
But then you're saying they spread misinformation. How do they do greenwashing in a very horrible way?
Well, misinformation is a part of greenwashing. So really? Climate misinformation is absolutely greenwashing. Anything that would throw the average consumer off from kind of, off the rails, off reality. So it's not necessarily just the statements that might be on a pack that you see at the store. It's also companies' actions directly and indirectly in terms of sort of messing up any progress toward a more sustainable future.
Okay. I think it's only just hitting me in real time. So am I correct in understanding this concept in this way? Not only I as a corporation will be like, look, I am like 3,000 good and so green. But at the same time, if I hire external people to say global warming is not that bad. So the gap between my 3,000 efforts and the global warming not being such a bad monster is shortened in just your eyes. And then that overall has a net impact on how green you see me as.
Yep. So
so you make the two ends meet. You make the horrible things sound less horrible, and you make your bare minimum efforts sound much higher in quality than they are. Oh my
exactly
God.
Right. So that's how bad it gets, is that companies are coming at this from multiple fronts. to really throw consumers off, because at the end of the day, greenwashing is anything that will misinform a consumer and change their consumer choice in a way that is unethical. So that could be directly by printing something or making an advert. It could be indirectly by funding an organization that does that for me. So they're basically passing the buck of the responsibility of greenwashing. That's why they do this. So they can't be held responsible for the greenwashing. If I am a big oil company, I don't want to get fined for greenwashing. So I'm going to pay that European media group to do the greenwashing for me, so they get in trouble. And that group is probably just so happy to take the money, they don't even think that far along.
And they're probably not going to suffer any repercussions
They
from it
wouldn't,
either in the first place. So
not compared to what a
nobody has skin
petrochemical-
in the game then.
Exactly
Not really.
right. No. The only one with skin in the game is the end consumer.
And they are already being lied to and fooled. And oh my God, you warp their perception of reality so much that they don't know what choices they're making.
And they don't know why they're making the
so
choices.
messed up.
It's the intent behind it. So the classic example of greenwashing, and the sort of the first most popular historical example of greenwashing, comes from hotels. So, every single hotel around the world, you stay at a hotel, what do you see in the bathroom? You see the little placard that says hang up your towel.
Yes.
Because it saves the environment.
Yes.
That's not why they do it. They do it because water use is their biggest budget cost. It has nothing to do with saving the planet, and it never has. It's a way for them to. It's rebranding a way for them to save money. The environment doesn't matter, but now it's again back on the consumer.
But it does help the environment.
It
if you
helps,
reuse your
but
towels.
not to the extent you would think it does. It helps their bottom line far more than it helps the planet.
So you need not feel guilty about wanting a new towel? Is that what you're saying?
If you don't mind reusing your towel, go on and reuse it.
Yeah.
That's totally fine. But I think if you're, going on a vacation, there are far more important things to be worrying about if you actually care about the environment.
That's a good perspective, actually. Because
you just hopped on a plane and emitted all that carbon, and you want to hang up a towel? Think the big picture here, people. And I'm not telling you not to. I love my trips to Thailand to go sit on the beach. I just got back, so I'm not telling you not to go on trips, but put things in perspective.
That's very useful. That's practical advice for sure, and puts things in perspective, which is much needed. Yeah, we need reminders. That's very good. So how do we then protect ourselves and people around us who we can influence in return from being manipulated? Not all of us have the time or will or capacity to deep dive into things and to question and counter question things. So can we make it simple to question things? What kind of basic vetting questions should I be asking myself or of that product to kind of make an informed decision quite easily, relatively easily?
Yeah, there are plenty of things that one can do as a consumer where it doesn't require you necessarily to have to pull out your phone and do a bit of research while you're at the shelf. We talked about a few, so trusting your gut, I think, is very, very important. You cannot discount intuition. If it feels like you're being lied to, you have plenty of options to find something else. So that's certainly part one. Understanding the colors and symbols, again, the semiotics around what you're looking at, and it doesn't look too good to be true. Is it just a cutesy picture on here? Is there a substance behind it? Is important. There are also certifications that you can look for when you go to the store. So the most popular is called the Rainforest Alliance certification. It's essentially a small tree frog that's kind of printed on a pack of, usually it's cocoa, coffee, tea, any sort of plant product. And what that little tree frog denotes is that company is a sustainable company. So you can trust that the certification is good and that company is good, so you can trust that product. There are others as well, depending on what type of product it is. One is called the FSC. That's for wood products. So if you go to IKEA, you'll see all over their products are all FSC certified, which means it's very sustainable, it's sustainably sourced. So there are things you can look for on a pack. And another popular one, especially here in Australia, is B Corp certification. Oh. And that's essentially, you look on the back of a pack and it will have a big B, black and white, in just a B. And that means it is a B Corp certified company. And those companies have gone through pretty much the strictest certification regime that exists anywhere in the world to be considered a sustainable, ethical company. Those are really clear indications that you're buying a good product. Another sort of indication sometimes is the price of a product. We talked earlier about things being a little bit more expensive. It's gone down. So buying organic, buying good quality products that are sustainable is not as expensive as it used to be. I think it's dropped by something like 70% over the past 20 years. So it's much more affordable than it used to be. Maybe not for everybody, and that's okay. But if something is way too cheap, that's always a concern. That's not just food, that's clothing, that's anything. Why is it cheap, right? And just because it's cheap for you doesn't mean somebody hasn't paid the price for it, especially from a labor perspective. So always question if something is a little too cheap. You probably want to stay away from that stuff as well if possible. Those are some hopefully helpful guide points just to get people started, and then ideally they'll do a little bit more research and find companies that they do support because the company is a good company.
That's very smart. I did not know of the frog. I do not know of the bee. If we have them in front of our eyes, it's hard to miss.
Yes.
Once you do know what to look for,
you know it's
you'll
there.
know straight away.
You cannot ignore it. And another part of this, one of the few silver linings, big silver linings that we've had over the past few years is greenwashing has become so bad that governments are finally stepping in. That's how bad and we have not seen this in a very long time when it comes to sustainability. So Australia actually is leading the world in fining companies for greenwashed claims. Santos, Woodside, the most recent was Energy Australia was hauled in front of federal court, and they've been receiving fines in the millions of dollars for greenwashed claims and having to come out and publicly apologize to their consumers. The EU has passed such strict regulations around what can and can't be called sustainable that in Europe you can no longer even use the words eco-friendly.
Wow.
Because it's too misunderstood by consumers.
Yeah.
So there are regulations tightening things up. That plus the combination of research on the part of the consumer and those certifications will go a long way in helping alleviate a lot of greenwashing we're seeing.
So fascinating. And because you mentioned organic, is organic being used incorrectly in greenwashing too?
There are different to phrase this, agriculture is not my area of expertise, but I know there are different categorizations of organic, and this is a big bugbear for farmers. Is that what would have been considered the strictest levels of organic 15, 20 years ago is now just kind of basic farming. And so farmers that are now like at what those strictest levels of organic are today are just sort of lumped together with basic farmers. So I think with agriculture, you really have to be very smart about what you're purchasing from and not just assume that organic is organic. Now there's different types of organic and some are much better than others. It makes it problematic, I know. One step forward, two steps back.
Can't take a win easily, can we? Not in peace anyway. Your book. Firstly, again, if you guys want a reminder, his new book coming up is called Eat the Rich, and I love the title. So trying to bring back the conversation a little bit about your book. When we talk about power, politics, the 1%, hence the name Eat the Rich, because the onus of making a mess has lived with them. So we would ideally want the onus of cleaning up that mess to live with them too. Wishful thinking. If we wanted to take a piss at all of that, what are the worst examples of the 1% harming, actively harming the sustainability efforts and then getting away with it? I'm not saying they're doing the harm. I'm saying how do they push back any of the sustainability efforts that you would want to put in place? Because they are. I'm sure they're making it very difficult to even clean up their mess.
So I in the book, I framed who I included in the book, not simply because they're wealthy. You made wealth? Great. Congratulations. I'm happy for you. Don't hate, participate, blah, blah, blah. The people I included, the examples and cases I included are those people that are billionaires. That was the first cutoff point. But they claim to be what they're not. That was my thing. So they're greenwashing their image, basically. There are, and I know you told me not to mention her name, but I'm going to, Gina Reinhardt. She calls herself, and this is no word of a lie, the Iron Lady of Philanthropy. She destroyed the planet with all of her land ownership and the business that she does. Fun fact, Gina Reinhardt is the world's third largest landowner, right behind the British royal family and the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
She is the biggest individual landowner in the world, and with that, she digs holes in the ground. But she calls herself the Iron Lady of Philanthropy, and she gets away with that in her mind because her big thing is to sponsor Cambodian girls through college. I did the math.
Yeah.
I did the math. The amount of... She's putting, I think, something like 4 girls through Cambodian college every year. Mm-hmm. Every 4 years, she's spending $48,000. She is worth hundreds of billions of dollars. That's not philanthropy. That's a tax break.
It's pocket change for her.
Pocket change for her. So it's these sorts of people that are pretending they're something they're not. There are plenty of others. The Resnicks make an appearance. They're a California couple that really came to prominence back in January when Southern California was having a massive bout of wildfires, and the fire department ran out of water to fight the fires. And that's because the Resnicks, who own the Palm Wonderful group of companies, the pomegranate juice, the almonds, they own Fiji Water.
Oh.
This family, they own a vast majority of the water rights in Southern California, and they said, essentially, can't use the water, it's ours. If you want to use it to fight these fires, you got to pay for it. But this woman, the wife, I think her name is Linda Resnick, she says that her husband should be canonized because of his philanthropy and charity to the world and how good of a person he is. So these are the things, and in my mind, and as I'm writing this book, I'm going, do these people believe the shit they're saying, or are they that out of touch and delusional that they actually, like, I think they're just delusional. They're not trying to, I mean, they are lying to us and pretending they're something they're not, but I don't think they think they're lying. No, that's it. I think they actually think they're a net positive on society, which, what the hell do you do with that?
That's such a good phrase, because I use that all the time, net positive, net negative, and not many people think in those terms. A lot of the times, the privileged will often do one tiny thing that's borderline human and considerate, which we do on the daily, every now and then. They'll do it once and they'll be like, look, I did this one good thing. That absolves me from all of the shitty things I've done, all of the responsibility that I did not shoulder. And then they genuinely think they did something amazing and they want to be praised for it too.
It's performative activism at scale.
Now we've seen the performative activism of the ultra-rich. Next, we'll tackle how to confront these giants and drive real change from the very top in our next and last episode on this topic. Until then, bye. And that was the Unhinged Poddy episode for today. I hope you enjoyed. Reach out to us at the Unhinged Poddy on our socials. Give me your feedback, suggestions. Tell me what you would like me to talk about next. Until then, bye.
The Unhinged Poddy.